Have you ever noticed how often men feel wronged, even when nothing was taken from them? A man is rejected by a woman and he feels cheated. A wife asserts a boundary and he feels disrespected. A woman speaks confidently at work and he feels threatened. A survivor says no and he insists it was a misunderstanding. Not because something was promised to him, but because something was expected. This is not anger, this is entitlement, male entitlement. It is the quiet belief that the world owes men something: women's bodies, women's time, women's emotional labor, women's forgiveness, women's sacrifice, women's silence. It is the belief that access is natural, refusal is personal, and accountability is cruelty. In India, male entitlement doesn't always announce itself loudly. It hides behind tradition, behind family values, behind boys will be boys, behind log kya kahenge. It is taught gently, reinforced daily, and defended fiercely. Tonight, we are not talking about bad men. We are talking about a system that raises ordinary men to believe that dominance is normal and resistance is rebellion. This episode asks an uncomfortable question: when did power begin to feel like a birthright? Hello and welcome back to The Personal Lens, where everyday experiences meet uncomfortable truths and nothing is as neutral as it seems. Today we are unpacking a belief many men never question: the idea that access, authority, and obedience are somehow owed. So, what is male entitlement really? Male entitlement is not simply arrogance or ego. It is a structural expectation, the belief that men are owed obedience, care, access, admiration, and authority simply because they are men. Feminist theorist Michael Kimmel explains entitlement as invisible power, power so normalized that it no longer feels like power at all. That's why equality feels like oppression, rejection feels like injustice, accountability feels like humiliation. Entitlement is most visible when it is denied. This is why men who have never faced discrimination still ask, why are women getting reservations? Why do women need special laws? Why can't men say anything anymore? Because equality disrupts entitlement. And entitlement begins at home. In Indian households, entitlement is not taught, it is absorbed. A boy is told to beta hai, you are the son. लड़कियों जैसा मत रहो, don't cry like a girl. शादी के बाद बीवी संभाल लेगी, your wife will manage after your marriage. Whereas a girl is told to adjust, compromise, sacrifice, be patient. Who serves food first? Who eats last? Who is excused from chores? Who is trained to anticipate everyone else's needs? By adulthood, entitlement feels natural. So when a wife says, I'm tired, he hears rebellion. When she asks for help, he hears criticism. When she refuses sex, he hears betrayal. Now let's talk about entitlement in marriage and intimacy. Indian marriage is so often framed as partnership. In reality, it is frequently institutionalized entitlement. Consider how casually we accept sex as a marital duty, emotional labor as a wife's responsibility, domestic work as help when men do it, control disguised as concern. Marital rape is still not criminalized in India. Why? Because the law continues to recognize a husband's assumed access to his wife's body. Entitlement doesn't always look violent. Sometimes it looks like sulking, like silent treatment, like guilt. After everything I do for you, I'm your husband. Didn't I have rights? Other wives don't behave like this. Entitlement weaponizes obligation. Now, if male entitlement had a training ground, Indian cinema would be one of its earliest classrooms. For decades, our films have taught men a dangerous lesson: that desire deserves reward, that persistence is the proof of sincerity, and that a woman's discomfort is merely a hurdle in a love story. The hero doesn't ask, he insists. He follows her when she walks away. He sings when she says no. He humiliates her publicly because one day she'll realize how much he cares. And when she finally gives in, the film calls it romance. This is not accidental storytelling. This is entitlement being rehearsed as virtue. From the soft, charming stalker to the aggressive, brooding lover, Hindi cinema has repeatedly centered male longing as sacred and female autonomy as negotiable. When films like Kabir Singh frame rage, control, and obsession as passion, they're not just telling a story, they are teaching an emotional script. If you love her enough, she will belong to you. If she resists, she's confused. If she leaves, she's ungrateful. Notice how rarely we ask, why does he feel entitled to her attention? Why is his pain more important than her consent? Why is her no treated as a challenge rather than an answer? Even in so called progressive films, the arc often ends with male redemption, not female freedom. He changes, he suffers, he grows, and she forgives. Forgiveness becomes the final proof of love. Cinema doesn't just reflect society, it normalizes entitlement by making it aspirational. It trains audiences to empathize with male frustration while dismissing female boundaries as obstacles to happiness. So, when men grow up believing that rejection is cruelty and control is care, it's not because they imagined it, it's because they were taught to clap for it. And male entitlement doesn't shout, it settles in. It's in Indian weddings where men sit and eat while women orbit the room refilling plates, managing relatives, never quite resting. No announcement, no argument, just expectation. It's on buses and local trains, men sprawled wide, bags claiming empty seats while women fold themselves smaller, apologizing for space they paid for. It's in family homes where sons are not good at housework, so daughters become experts by force, where care is assumed feminine and incompetence is forgiven masculine. It's in offices where women soften their voices to survive because assertiveness is confidence in men and attitude in women. And when women name it, entitlement doesn't listen, it deflects. You're overreacting. I didn't mean it like that. That's just how things are. Intent becomes the shield. Impact is dismissed. Notice how often men expect applause for basic decency. I help at home. I respect women. I would never hit a woman. The bar is so low, it's underground, and yet entitlement still demands gratitude. And these aren't small things, they are daily rehearsals, teaching who adjusts, who occupies, and who is allowed to feel uncomfortable. Entitlement survives not because it's violent, but because it's ordinary, and nothing threatens it more than being noticed. But what makes everyday misogyny so powerful is not just that it's common, but that it's protected. The same logic that lets a man interrupt you at work, take up space in public, or expect care at home doesn't stop at behavior. It becomes policy, it becomes law. In India, the legal system often mirrors the same expectations we absorb in daily life. That men are rational, natural, and trustworthy, while women must constantly prove harm. That's why when women speak up, the first response is suspicion. Why now? Why didn't you leave earlier? Why did you stay so long? These are not legal questions. They are moral judgments rooted in entitlement to women's silence. Take marriage. Inside homes, a wife is expected to adjust, accommodate, endure. Outside, the law reflects that same assumption. Marital rape is still not recognized as a crime in India. The message is chillingly familiar. Once married, consent is assumed, access is expected, and refusal becomes invisible. This is entitlement translated into statute. When laws like Section 498A or the Domestic Violence Act exist, they are constantly framed as misused. The conversation rarely begins with why women needed protection. It begins with how men might be inconvenienced. Notice the pattern. Women must prove suffering. Men are presumed credible. Even when courts acknowledge violence, they often urge compromise. Think of the family, adjust for the children, marriage should be saved. The burden of peace is placed once again on women. So when men say the system is biased against us, what they are often reacting to is something simpler. For the first time, entitlement is being questioned. The law does not create male entitlement. It legitimizes it by treating male comfort as stability, female resistance as disruption. And just like in everyday life, accountability is framed not as justice, but as cruelty. But why entitlement feels invisible to men? For men, entitlement doesn't feel like power. It feels like normal life. It feels like being heard without fighting for it. Like moving through public spaces without fear. Like not having to explain why you're uncomfortable. Like being assumed competent before you prove anything at all. Because entitlement isn't about what men actively do. It's about what they never have to consider. They don't have to plan escape routes. They don't have to calculate tone. They don't have to justify boundaries. They don't have to rehearse safety. So when women ask for equality, it doesn't register as balance. It registers as loss. Loss of ease, loss of authority, loss of being centered. And when something you've always had is questioned, it doesn't feel like accountability. It feels personal. Because entitlement is normalized comfort, it's not what men do, it's about what they never have to think about. Not fearing rejection, turning violent, not worrying about safety at night, not being blamed for someone else's behavior. Privilege feels invisible until challenged. Male entitlement survives because it is mistaken for deserving, because comfort is framed as earned, access as natural, and care as guaranteed. So when women say no to silence, to sacrifice, to adjustment, the reaction isn't confusion, it's anger. Not because something was taken, but because something assumed was refused. Entitlement doesn't disappear when it's argued with. It disappears when it's seen, when we stop calling it tradition, romance, or normal. Because equality will always feel threatening to those who mistake power for a birthright. Because the most dangerous belief is not hatred, it is the belief that something belongs to you simply because you exist. And until we unlearn entitlement, equality will always feel like loss. This was the personal lens where the things we live with every day are examined for the power they quietly hold. If this episode unsettled you, sit with that discomfort. That's where change begins. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and share. Leave your comments at the email given in the description. And until next time, keep looking through the personal lens.